Thank goodness for inflation! TGFI, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. In this video, I'll explain to you why I'm excited about inflation, and more importantly, why the stock market is secretly excited about inflation. First, let's touch on why inflation is bad and why all the news media are saying inflation is bad. It erodes the purchasing power of goods. That holds true for both consumers like you and me and for companies. Okay, that makes sense. Things cost more, and that sucks. When it comes to the stock market, everyone is afraid that higher inflation means higher interest rates. Higher rates means higher borrowing costs, and that will negatively impact companies with large debt loads or those looking to borrow in the future. Cool. I'm sure you've heard that on repeat for about 2 months now. Let's get to why inflation is good. There are two main facets to this. The first one is super simple. If you do have debt and the interest rate is already locked in at a low interest rate for the next 5, 10, or 20 years, rising rates won't affect you unless you need to refinance that or you need to borrow new debt. It can actually make holding that debt on your books, and I'm talking about personal consumer books, or as a company, your books, it becomes cheaper because your rate doesn't go up, but individual dollars should be more plentiful due to inflation. So that's the first concept. Super simple, and some of the TV pundits are starting to talk about this. Now let's get to the second aspect, and this is a huge one that I feel like no one is talking about yet. If a company is experiencing higher inflation due to increased wages and cost of goods, what are they going to do with their end product or service? Well, obviously, they would love to raise prices. In normal times, can they do that? If wages aren't going up, if commodities are cheap, how do they justify increased prices on their goods? It's tough. We as consumers are far more likely to balk at that. But in an environment like we are now, we as consumers are getting bombarded with headlines around supply chain disruptions. Think semiconductors, used cars, increased commodity prices. Think about lumber, oil, natural gas, and increased wages. Think about nursing strikes and the Great Resignation. Amazon hiring 125,000 people. Now, those same companies want to raise prices. They're totally justified, right? Look at all the headwinds and margin pressure they're dealing with. We as consumers are going to be way more accommodating, and many of us are flush with cash from stimulus and this crazy bull market. From a recent Wall Street Journal article, executives are seizing a once-in-a-generation opportunity to raise prices to match and in some cases outpace their own higher expenses. 2/3 of America's largest companies have fatter profit margins than they did in 2019. 2019, the year before the pandemic started, and 100 of these companies have increased their profit margins by over 50%. So going back to TGFI and why I'm excited about inflation. As a consumer, it sucks. But as an investor and as a business owner, I think the market is in for another 2 to 3 year growth cycle. Let's talk about the impact of these increased profit margins and net profit dollars. The S&P 500 price to earnings multiple, the PE, stands at 29.5, which yes is quite high, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. So a 29.5 PE, what happens when the E, which stands for earnings, goes up by $1 per share? Well, the P, the price of the stock, goes up by $29.50. That is the earnings multiple. Now, granted, there is a large subset of companies that will be slower to increase prices, or they've been more impacted by COVID. I run a travel company. You want to talk about impacts to earnings and margins? My company has certainly experienced it, but we survived. And what do you think we did in 2020? I raised prices. It didn't help me a lot in 2020, nor much in 2021, but as COVID subsides, people get back to traveling and other businesses get back to normal, we now have higher price points. I think that spells stronger future earnings for my business personally, and many of these other businesses that have also been negatively impacted. Again, further elevating the earnings of more companies and therefore the price of their stocks. So I'll leave you with this. Inflation viewed as a 2D macroeconomic trend, it sucks. We as consumers have to pay more for the same goods. But If you dig a little deeper and want to reap the benefits of higher inflation, begetting higher earnings, begetting higher stock prices, then I encourage you to invest more time and money into your stock portfolio to make sure you'll be riding the tide as it raises your boat. Let me know what you think about inflation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.